All right, so we're gonna see how this turns out. Hopefully you can see the screen. I'm doing this on my phone using tele.tv. So we'll see. Hopefully I don't record this for nothing. But one of the things that I wanted to do is walk through some of the things that I've experienced while building Grapevine. And just for people that don't know, quickly, I started with a development firm based out of Pakistan. We built Grapevine, the first version, we call it Grapevine 1.0, as a virtual office platform. And the goal was to basically bring together as many things as possible into one system so the entire company could be aligned and engaged. We learned that okay, that was good, but it was a vitamin. It wasn't a painkiller. In August of 2025, I completely pivoted. I didn't re-up the contract with the development team, and I completely rebuilt Grapevine from the ground up 100% by myself using a tool called Base 44. Now I'm a Base 44 ambassador. I think there's other tools out there that you can use, but to me, Base 44 has been the easiest to use. It comes with the front end, the back end, and really everything that you need to develop your app. So that just because I pivoted didn't mean that I knew everything. And that's where this episode is coming from. Whenever I pivoted, I was able to build anything that I wanted to, really. And even though that sounds like a great thing, it's also a bad thing. So instead of focusing on selling, I was focusing on building. Instead of listening to the customer, I was focused on building, and so on and so forth. Now, luckily, during the pivot, I was able to revamp how I think about this. Even so, today, and that's what I'm going to be talking about, is how our customers operate, and then how I'm still trying to figure out the best way to deliver that to the customer. And so, one of the things that I am now from rebuilding and being able to build anything and not understanding who our ICP was. Now we do. And so that's how I'm able to go into the next phase of Grapevine. Maybe this is even Grapevine Workplace 3.0. But what I was doing was, okay, I had the ability to build on my own, which meant that if I had an idea, I could add this feature, right? Okay. Or if a customer came to me and had an idea or a question and I took it as, okay, I need this to be able to move forward, I would build it, right? So boom, boom. Now we got features coming in. Then I come up with an idea on, okay, this could be good here and it could serve that. So then I come in here and build it again, right? So you get the point. What I've started to do is focus less on what I can build and focus more on what I should build, right? And so what that means is if the platform right now is like this, where we have the top toolbar, we have the side toolbar, and then literally everything is inside of the platform, right? So we have search, we have the icon, we have the home, then we have different things, right? Then everything inside of here. So the goal was kind of to be the all-in-one platform for agencies to operate on. Well, I realized that I don't know why it took me this long. My background is in strategy and operations, and being an operator means that you're typically an admin of a software. And that seems okay. There's no problem in that. But the issue is that me as an operator and being the admin of things like Salesforce, HubSpot, um, Lattice, like you name the tool, I've probably been an admin of it if it falls into the realms of B2B SaaS applications. And so whenever I was building it, I was building what probably should have been the admin style, right? And so whenever I went to go and do demos, it was like, have you seen this? Have you seen this? We can do this. We can do this, right? Or if we didn't have something, we could fill this in. Now, it's good to have all these things, but the way that you deliver them and present them to people who are not admins is just as important, if not more important. So instead of this, what we're doing now, and I say we, what I'm doing now, hopefully all these words, let's see. Yeah, okay. So now the issue that I'm running into is I need to simplify what it is that we show to users, what the leaders can see, and then what the admins can do, right? And so now we have, I don't even know how many things that we have, but just to list on a few. We have our dashboard, which we're already simplifying our dashboard. We have a scheduler, so you can book meetings. We have meetings inside of Grapevine. We have eval, we have calendars, we have slides, we have notes or documents, we have project management, we have smart tables, so you can actually set up your entire CRM inside of Grapevine. You can have your content creation inside of Grapevine. We have chat, we have hubs, we have knowledge base, we have workspaces, which ultimately turn into your client portals. And I'm listing these off exhaustedly because that's the point. Like even just me mentioning that is an issue, right? So what I'm doing now is I'm looking at the workflow of our customer. What does it look like? So if our customer is B2B agencies, really is B2B services agencies, and we're even thinking about going into B2B services agencies who are AI consultants. We'll go into that later. But if I think about this, this is a typical workflow for a B2B services agency, right? So they have their leads. So they come in, they typically have a prospecting tool, right? But they need a CRM to manage those leads, right? They have meetings with those and emails. So how to write these perfectly. So, okay. So with those meetings, they also have notes. So notes. And then once they get to a certain point, so this will kind of sprinkle through the whole way. So like they're an actual sales qualified lead or a SQL. That means that we're going to manage them in the system. And what stage are they at? What are the last notes? What were the last emails? All the things that we need to know to be able to occupy that. The meetings and the emails are going to have their transcripts. It's going to have the entire threads. So this is really data, right? For us, for the agencies. We have data, 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 right? And we might even have some assets here. So it might be like we created some slides, something like that. So data, 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 data. Okay. So these things are all kind of connected, right? So you need to have a place to store that. Typically, it's going to be better if it's stored in one platform. But let's continue down this process. Let's say that they won the deal. So now what they need is a way to send the contract. So let's say invoice, contract, proposal, like all these things in here, right? Okay. So then what we do, you're going to have a kickoff. So you need a client portal. Actually, before the portal, this could be part about the portal, but you want like an intake form. So let's just say forms, right? Because the way that it works is you get the client in there, you're running through, you're closing them, you're having meetings, you have the notes. You get to the point where you close one, you've already sent the proposal, the contract. Now you have like an intake form. And this again is now customer data, right? So we're taking the elements that we have here. So we already have that. We don't want to re-ask them that. But now the intake form is going to ask them specific things that are related to the project or the engagement that we're going to be running with them. So once we have that, then it goes into their portal and projects, right? And so these become together. These are kind of like related to both. And so now this is the management aspect of it. Okay. So data, 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 payments, let's say revenue, data, management, right? So now the difference with our platform is that it's all connected, right? So that's the goal of Grapevine Workplace. But if we look at everything that we had over here versus this flow, there's a lot of things that we don't need. So if we go back to some of the things that I listed off, okay, so we have hubs. You can think about those as like your intranet, your department hubs, which could be good, but instead, let's just create an internal portal, right? So we give that the option. The CRMs right now are in smart tables. So CRMs are unique in their own right, so they need to be separate. So let's just go ahead and separate that. The proposals right now live in notes. We call our documents notes, and you just click on a contract tab. But these are important for the process of a B2B services agency. So we need to separate these, right? So now we take that and separate it. So hubs, we take out, separate. And then so like the whole point of this is what I'm doing now is whenever I was pivoting and rebuilding Grapevine, I had the assumption from customer conversations that we needed to go into productivity. We needed to build a painkiller, not a vitamin, not a nice to have. We needed something that actually tackled a real problem. And so I had tons of conversations with B2B services agencies. And it wasn't that I set out that way. I opened it up. I reached out to a lot of people, kind of cast a wide net. And then I analyzed the people who were willing to talk to me. And it just so happened that B2B services agencies were the ones that were looking for a solution to the problem I was trying to solve, right? So that's when the first episode we talked about, or the second episode, we talked about solving the problem, not focusing on the solution or the product, right? So I did start here and went ahead and built as many things as possible from the conversations that I was having. Now what I'm doing is I'm taking a look at what we've built right here. I'm comparing it to the process. And then I'm comparing it to what we already have, right? Like some of the other things that we have, we have slides. I'm not saying that we don't need slides, but is it something that we actually need to develop, or is it something that we can integrate with whenever you have tools like Google Slides, you have Microsoft PowerPoint, you have Gamma AI developer out there, or you have people that are building their own apps to deliver those things. So are these needed? I don't know. It's still like one of these are still up in the air, right? Now, the other thing, other than just the features, are the layout, right? And so if I look at the layout, let's go to this over here. So if I look at the layout, one of the things that I had was separate. So the productivity suite, we'll start abbreviating, but the productivity suite that I had, it was notes. It was, what else? Slides we had. Slides, tables, project management, right? So you get the point. But these all lived on the sidebar separately, not together. So what can we do as a layout perspective? Let's just go ahead and put it in a drive, right? So now it cleans up the sidebar where when we're demoing it or we're talking to people about how to adopt Grapevine, it's not so overwhelming. Like even right here, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then contracts are in there, forms are in there. This all goes into one tab, and then inside that tab you have multiple. But just from an admin version versus a user or a viewer version, this is going to be significantly easier to understand, learn, and adopt and actually use, right? So right now, if I think about it, we separate the CRM, we separate the contracts, we probably can bring together certain things too. We change the layout of the portal so the client view is super easy, and they just literally follow the things that are on the client portal versus all the things that we had in there now. And then we build the product around the system, right? So that's what we're doing right now. And so if we look at the process, what are the things that we actually need? So we need a CRM system. We need emails and meetings. We need documents, and that could have the assets in there. Another thing that agencies had that kind of live wherever, not wherever, but like it could be added to any part, is a knowledge base. So you think about SOPs, right? They live off of these. So as we're going through this process, each has its own SOP or knowledge base or wiki, right? And so not only are we changing the layout or the features, we're changing how these things operate together, right? So if I'm in the CRM system and I'm at the sales process at demoing the product, what is the demo SOP? And can it come to me instead of me having to go to it, right? So now, if we put this all together, we have a simplified version where, okay, we have the search right here. We have just one sidebar. We don't have anything up at the top, right? And so now, instead of like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, we have communication, productivity, or drive, client, contracts, something like that, right? Logo. And then we start thinking about individually, what do the features that we keep, or what are the features that we keep based off of the system, based off of the conversations that we have? None of this is coming out of assumption. It's coming from every single conversation that we've had with customers, right? So what is that? And then inside, for example, the dashboard that we had before, it had everything. It had your weekly priorities. It had all of your goals. It had your development plans. It had your meetings. It had the repository of workspaces, smart tables, notes, document, like all these things literally in one. But whenever you start thinking about this, and these are things that I had to learn by doing, so hopefully this video helps you where you can kind of jump ahead. the dashboard shouldn't be everything. It should be the things that are specific to move the company forward, to move that user and make them more productive, right? So like instead of everything under the sun, it's like what needs my attention, right? So that's what we got to focus on. What are the projects that we have in motion, right? And then like the statuses in here, that kind of stuff. And then what are the comments or mentions? Let's just do the mentions that I have to reply to, right? Because we're a collaborative system. So those are important. What playbooks do we have going on that need our attention, right? Whatever, you get the point. And then maybe one other thing right here, right? Like quick access, quick actions, quick links to the tools. Or it could even be like client responses needed. But so instead of having every single thing, we shorten it down to 5 boxes. And anything else they can search, they can go to Drive, whatever. And so I think the point of this video is to think about whenever you're building a product, especially as people can start to vibe code their own products right now, it's not about what you can build. It's about what should you build. And the way to get there, in my opinion and my experience, is not going this direction. And I've taken the development route, working with a team, I've built it myself and making these mistakes, to now I find the problem that I'm going to try to solve. I fall in love with that problem. And then before I build, I can get a prototype, right? So you can use an AI coding tool to have everything functioning. You can even have it with like fake data in there. And instead of like trying to make it perfect, just get a thing that you can show or to call whenever you meet with these people. The UI could be completely different. Just make sure that the problem and the thing is kind of designed around that problem. But I will say, whenever you talk to these people, make sure that you don't show them first. Ask them questions about their day-to-day. Ask them questions about their workflow. Ask them questions about how they've done it in the past. Ask them why the way that they did it in the past doesn't work anymore. Like we've talked to a lot of people, they tried to adopt Slack, which is like the simplest tool to adopt, but the team just didn't do it. This was a team in South Africa. They eventually went back to WhatsApp, right? So figure out those things. We've had people use Asana or Notion or Clicking. And whenever we ask them, like, what was the reason that you couldn't move forward with ClickUp or Notion? Notion is not scalable as you grow. That's what we've heard constantly. ClickUp is more about there's just so much stuff and it's super complicated to navigate, right? We were falling into that trap, right? And the thing is, the better that you know your customer, the better you can focus in on how to communicate to them. So this is more product and mapping out that way. So you start with the problem, you understand the current customer, but this ultimately feeds into how you outreach people, right? A lot of people will talk about personalization, using AI for personalization, but personalization doesn't really mean shit if you don't know your customer, know where they live, what matters to them, and what they've done in the past, right? Because then whenever you know that, you know who they are, you know how many employees they have, you know, are they a growth company? Did they just raise a Series A or an F or a D or whatever? Or are they in this industry? What other tools are out there? Like only until you know that and then really know the system and the workflows and the problem, only when you know that can you actually do personalized targeted outreach. A lot of people talk about personalized outreach. They don't talk about personalized targeted outreach. That's the whole thing with niching down, right? Because if we niche down to B2B agencies, and even further, B2B agencies running AI consultancies, that's where we can start to say, okay, if this is for AI consultancies, these forms right here, they might turn into AI audit templates, right? And then that's when you take somebody using something like Notion that was built for everybody, or ClickUp that was built for everybody, or Asana that was just built for like marketing agencies or marketing departments and different things like that. Now you can say like, we are the only operating system built and designed specifically for how your AI consultancy firm runs and operates, right? And then you can show them how you're different by saying, we have AI audits, we have AI implementation and build templates, we have AI consulting templates, and we have AI maintenance. So in here, in our product that we're updating and simplifying, every single AI consulting firm can come into Grapevine Workplace and have a full-on operating system specifically for how they run their organization. So hopefully this was helpful. I try to do a lot of different things, from lessons that I've learned specifically, lessons that I'm still learning, and using certain things from whenever I've had conversations with people trying to build these these companies that I'm trying to build. I'm trying to turn products into companies. So if you see this and you thought that this was interested, let me know. Um, and also in the comments, let me know if there's anything specific, whether it's vibe coding related, whether it's AI consulting, whether it's process mapping or product development, all those types of things. Let me know in the comments what you would like to see more of on this channel. Make sure to like, subscribe, comment, and share with anybody else who you think would find this beneficial. All right, thanks for watching. We'll see you on the next episode.